CBILLS conference. Indeed, time has passed swiftly when enriched by the exchange of insightful perspectives and significant ideas. To guide us through this culminating session, may I call on our moderator for our Plenary 5, Director 2 of the Legislative Bills and Index Service from the Senate of the Philippines, Attorney Elgic Paul Peredo. Sir, you may take the mic.
All right, hello everyone. So we're in the final stretch. It has been a long day of learning, a long CBILLS season as well. So this is our last hour for today. And so we'll try to tie up everything neatly, all the discussions today and the presentations. What the key terms that we have encountered today, and it's in our theme, no? It's inclusivity, it's participation, and a responsive governance. And this is it closely hinges around the things that are happening in our society today, of course. The concept of transparency, the concept of accountability, all right? And the question is, how can our institutions adapt? How can our institutions be agile and be resilient in the face of all of these challenges? So for this afternoon's panel, I would like to call on representatives from the Senate, from the House of Representatives, and also from the Development Academy of the Philippines to join us to discuss these topics. And without further ado, may I call on Deputy Secretary General Dante Roberto Maling of the Interparliamentary and Public Affairs of the House of Representatives. Also, Executive Director Merwin Salazar of the Senate Economic Planning Office. And finally, Senior Vice President for Programs of the DAP, Ms. Magdalena Mendoza. So I asked our our DAP friends if I would be standing up or sitting down, but they wanted the talk show format, so here I am. Anyway, today we witnessed a lot, the breadth as well as the depth of the presentations, and the presentations went into the core of the things that we are facing in our government right now. So there were examinations of long-standing challenges. The first presentation went immediately to what is happening, which is the budget deliberations. So they're trying to introduce a new way of looking at it, of having transparency in that. And we've also had a presentation on the basics, which is how to sustain our society with meaningful jobs through the IBET. And that also brought us to questions on agriculture and other basics. And finally, the question of implementation, which I think is a very important topic as well. And of course, they have their proposals for evidence-informed solutions that are responsive to these needs. And we've had insights as well from reactors from the government as well as the private sector. So all of this, including our panel this afternoon, only shows that the diversity of opinions and positions can make policy and legislation stronger. Okay, so we have three themes for our panelists this afternoon, and the first one has to do with transparency and accountability. All right, so we've discovered and we've learned from our presentations today that the environment is changing very fast. The presenter talked about a fast-paced, data-rich environment. So how are we going to adapt to that? So the changes are social, political, and economic. Okay. So I guess the question here is how can the public sector remain relevant in this environment? How can it remain a pillar of transparent and accountable governance? Maybe I'll call our panelists in the order that I call them on stage. So, yes, Debsec Manning.
Hello. Ako kasi, based on my experience as in the House of Representatives, when we talk of policy making, I feel confident na lahat ng kailangan mo for good governance are there. We have the laws, we have the implementing rules and regulations, we have the regulating agencies. But ang sa akin, ang isang when I caught the tail end of the last two presentations dun sa isang conference, we were dapat nako-concentrate sila on the gaps. Where are the gaps present? They talk of design. Ang ating resource speaker from the Urban Planning College of UP talk of gaps in design and policy. Ako what I find lacking in governance basically is yung M&E natin, monitoring and evaluation. All these sabihin na natin challenges that we are facing today, nahuhuli natin siya at the tail end. Tapos na yung project, na-claim na yung budget for these projects. And had we done our monitoring and evaluation seriously at every stage of the implementation process, we could have caught gaps in the implementation, gaps in the budget process, gaps in the design, gaps in the policy. Ako yun lang ang thesis ko that I would like to reiterate and highlight today, simply because we in the House of Representatives are also engaging ourselves in strengthening our monitoring and evaluation processes. Especially now na nakikita ko yung aking colleagues from the CPBRD, ang aming implementing arm, ang aming engineering, ang aming research arm from the operations and the LRMD. I'd like to highlight yung importance ng monitoring and evaluation. When we talk of plans, programs, and projects, I think we should strengthen our capability to monitor plans, programs, and projects, and evaluate yung effects nila not only today, but yung probably effects nila in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Edie Marin?
Hello. Thank you. Before I answer the question, I'd like to greet everyone. Good afternoon, and the fellow panel members. Good afternoon. The way I see the country since I joined government, particularly the Senate in 2004, I'm not. What strikes me the most is not really what has changed much, but what has remained the same all these years. The economy is still driven by the services sector, followed by industry, and then the agriculture lagging behind. And then politically, we have the same families and networks dominating. And then socially, the technological advancement that happened and the pandemic, the disasters that occurred, may have changed the way people live and the way they see government in terms of services. But the big problems that we were worried about 20 years ago or maybe 50 years ago are still with us. They haven't changed. In fact, in budget hearings, you would still hear the same problems over and over again, year in, year out. So I think when we talk about transparency and accountability, it's not about responding to trends. I think it's about how government should change to be able to respond to these big, long-standing problems and solve these problems once and for all. So there are many ways we can make the public sector become a pillar or remain a pillar of transparency, transparent and accountable governance. First is we need to have, I think, clear and consistent rules. We need to have information, usable information. Usable information in terms of outcome information. And we're not doing that in terms of, for example, in budgeting. It's not enough that we publish reports on spending. We publish reports on the budgets of each agency in government. What is important is we need to know whether farmers' incomes increased, or whether children can read, or whether social protection can reach those who are at risk the most. And this is where M&E comes in. So I agree with DSG Maling that we really need monitoring and evaluation in government. And the information that the evidence that can be generated from evaluation can be used to identify what works and what doesn't work. And I think in the Senate we are on our way to doing that. We started with budget transparency in our website, but I think there's very much room for improvement. I think it's not enough that documents are published in every step of the way. What is important is that we establish some mechanisms in which citizens are able to participate in how these decisions are made. For instance, in the amendments, we should be able to establish some mechanisms and institutionalize them to make citizenship participation freely accessible by the people. And there has to be some mechanisms that should establish this access to decision making in the parliament, for example, in legislature. And there should also be we should also establish a transparent and accountable mechanism. As I was saying earlier, and that standards should also apply to those who are powerful, not only to the rank and file staff. Now, when people see that officials who are credibly accused are investigated, removed from positions while hearings are being conducted or cases are being heard, and when proven guilty after due process, they are met with appropriate penalties. That's the time we see that transparent and accountable governance is real. That's all for now.
I have a little bit of follow-up on that, but before that, maybe we can have SVP Mendoza's answer.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. First of all, I would like to congratulate and affirm all the presenters. We are also affirmed at the DAP because we saw how each scholar of the CBILLS internalized what they learned, maybe what they benchmarked from other institutions. So I was just thinking how to answer the question. So how do you ensure that you have the public sector that becomes the pillar of transparency and accountability? But at the same time, if you are in the public sector, it's really transparency and accountability that is expected of you. So you have to be a pillar, but at the same time, you have to be transparent and you have to be accountable at the same time. So I do believe that in order for us, at least maybe we can say the career people in the public sector can become the pillar, is that if we can help strengthen our institutions, if we can make our institutions trustworthy. I was struck by the presentation of Ms. Cristel a while ago, because
They went to Australia. And
they went to
presented this
Australia,
gap.
and I think the benchmark was the parliamentary, I would say support entities. I think it's the parliamentary library, for instance, and the parliamentary budget office, who are so professional. And because they are a very strong institution, even if you have the different politicians who have their own interest, they provide the sound, I think, information, the right information, a very objective research and information, and competent professional support. So that way, you see that the institution is very strong. And strong institutions can really provide very good spaces for accountability. Now, I have my note here because I was searching for the definition of accountability. And I like this one because it says that accountability is the obligation to provide the information, to provide explanation, and to justify to the people, no, how public officials are using their power, exercising their duties, and even utilizing public resources. And accountability also demands that public officials answer or be responsible for the outcomes of policies that they select or do not select. So that's a very heavy responsibility. In our case, I think we have many accountability mechanisms, but I think how do you ensure that these are observed, these are enforced, and these are consistently followed, I think, is one thing. No? A while ago, we also talked about transparency. Accountability is built or is contingent on transparency. And to be transparent means that we need to be open. We need to regularly provide the information, not just one time. And we need to communicate without the hidden agenda. I think that last part is something that we need to strengthen. And what Maricon mentioned earlier is that transparency is incomplete without meaningful participation. And I think we had started with our transparency mechanisms many years ago, but there are the missing items or the gaps. And I think a way forward, among others, is to take the proposals, no, to provide a structured process by which the ordinary Filipino can meaningfully dialogue or communicate or discuss the policies, and also scrutinize how government is performing its functions, and also to make sure that the kind of information that we feed forward to the people would be something that is understandable and something that relates to something that they can relate with. No? So I like yung batibot style of explaining, no, how government is functioning and how government is accounting for the use of every peso of taxpayers' money.
Yeah. So the information should be there, but it also has to be quality information, something that the people need and are really looking for and can use. And I guess a follow-up question, I like the answers also given by Depsec Maling and ED Merwin about monitoring. I guess the one question with regard to that is, do we have the tools now, or do we have the proper ways or mechanisms, like you said? No? Maybe we can answer or elaborate on that during the open forum portion. So I'd like to move forward. Yes, so quality information, that is a cornerstone of transparency. But on the other hand, there also has to be participation, because after the people see what's there, they have to have a way of asking questions, of participating. But then that brings us to the next theme, which is how can the government now, through the policies that support it, provide this mechanism for inclusivity and participation, so that the citizens can have a meaningful voice in policy making. Maybe back to you, Debsec.
Well, from my point of view, when we talk of inclusivity, in so far as legislation is concerned, I think we produced so many laws out there that promotes inclusivity, especially protecting. We have all these Magna Cartas. We have all these gender-based budgeting, which is actually being undertaken right now, as far as the House of Representatives is concerned. In terms of participation and getting the participation of the people, I'd like to coin a term, yung productive activism. When I came into UP in the middle of the 70s, activism then was really strong. Ang sinasabi noon kung hindi tayo kikilos, sino kikilos? Kung hindi ngayon, kailan pa? But yung activism has gone extreme. Para sa akin, there's a certain destructive point of view of the activism we usually see on the streets. Ang sa akin, yung sana yung activism would be collaborative, productive to a degree that the people themselves are used as mechanisms to promote growth, promote whatever the society needs. Medyo naging extreme kasi yung definition and yung actualization activism. So yung komisan, it has got to the point that has been weaponized against certain parties. I do agree that as far as political families are concerned, and other factors of society, they have remained the same practically to the decades. But still, ang extremes din naman sa akin is that society in itself is divided into the duty providers, the duty bearers, and the right holders. Ang duty providers are we in government, because it is our duty to protect the rights and the interests of the people. And yung rights na yon should be protected by the people themselves. But let us never forget that rights will never be absolute. And when I say that, when we say that you have certain rights, you should be taught also the responsibility to protect that right, the obligations you need to do to earn that right.
All right. So you're saying there's quality. There's two aspects to participation. You're saying that the government already has laws and the framework, but on the other hand, you're also saying that participation has to be quality participation, the
Yes.
right kind of participation, not bandwagonism or
Yes.
just going against the mainstream or something like that.
Yes.
Interesting.
Again, I'd like to term it as productive activism.
Productive activism. That's very interesting. Edie Marwin?
Hello. For me, for this legislation to be inclusive and participative, it has to begin with defining the problem. You cannot do that when the bill is already written. We have to include people in defining the problem. We have to include those who live with the problem every day. Otherwise, people will not appreciate the bill that is being proposed in Congress. And when people see that their reality is reflected in the bills, they would see later on that the laws that are passed, somehow they have contribution to shaping those laws because they were considered in the beginning. First is defining the problem. Now, second, we need participation to be carried through in all the phases of policy development cycle, from problem definition to policy formulation, policy implementation, and policy evaluation or monitoring and evaluation, which we are not currently doing strictly. We have the DepDev actually has a framework for monitoring and evaluation, which is being implemented at the executive branch, but not all agencies in the executive branch are really doing monitoring and evaluation in this strictest sense. So if participation is being carried from problem definition to policy formulation, implementation, and evaluation, the evaluation would tell us what has worked and what hasn't worked. It will provide us the information. And for participation really to be institutionalized, we need our laws and institutions to support this kind of work. In other words, doing evaluations should be a normal part of the normal course of business in government, by every agency in government. And that every agency in government should be able to produce that kind of information that would inform the people. I remember telling the DepDev when I was in a meeting with their evaluation group that they should insist in the DBCC that the budget document, the current budget document is okay. From an accounting sense, it is okay. But from a policy perspective, from a planner's perspective, it is not. It doesn't provide the link to our Philippine Development Plan. It doesn't provide an information as to how the budget for education would contribute to achieving one of the goals defined under the Philippine Development Goals. Because the crafting of the budget, in the crafting of the budget, people were not involved. And that is, I think, one of the major reforms that has to be done by the government. I think it's about time, given that the current controversies that we are currently facing. I think we really need to reform the way we do things in government. We need to look back to people. We need to look back to evidence to be able to craft a budget that really reflects the needs of the people.
All right, so I'm getting from your answer, again, I think there's a question about tools there. Interoperability of systems of information of agencies so that the people can readily cross-refer to other information that is available elsewhere. So there's also that question. There was a panel reactor earlier this morning. I forget who it was, but he used the term information intermediary, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that is a good tool to consider. No? SVP Mendoza mentioned capability building, so this can be in the form of people, and also the things that we use, like technology. But SVP Mendoza, your thoughts on that topic, please.
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking, how do you really make the legislation process inclusive? Because by being inclusive, it means that you don't exclude or you cover even the minorities, the vulnerable, those that are in the far-flung areas. And when we have a centralized, I would say, legislative process, and when our legislative institutions are in the urban area, how do you really reach out to these vulnerable minorities, communities out there? And the other question is, how do you motivate them to engage, to participate? Because I believe that we already have many mechanisms, participatory mechanism, the way we can, I would say, gather information. We have many councils and all that. But I think we all agree that we are still unable to reach out to these groups in a very effective manner. And these groups, even if we are able to talk to them, are not able to articulate exactly how the policy should look like. What should be the feature of the policy that would really ensure that they are not negatively affected by that policy? What should be considered by the government? And I think it is incumbent upon our legislators, or maybe even the legislative staff, to have that skill to empathize and to maybe to have some more mechanisms by which you can really go to the do the groundwork, mix, maybe try to immerse, no, and as Merwin mentioned, you need to start defining the policy problem from the point of view of the vulnerable people. And in order to do that, I think we need to help, and we can only help define the problem that way if we truly empathize with the conditions.
I absolutely agree. So I guess a common theme from your answers is that we do have policies, we do have frameworks, we do have laws. And in legislation, if you look at all the laws, there's always an oversight committee. There's always a body that involves the grassroots, their inputs. So again, it's a matter of implementation, I think. And that will dovetail with the last theme, which is, okay, so we have this, so what do we do moving forward? How can we legislate? How can we, what policies do we need to strengthen the institutions that we have, not only for now, but for the long term?
Well, for me, the House of Representatives has started, in a way, to engage civil society and other public and private entities in the budget process. We cannot do so much until such time that we keep the doors open for them to participate. There are always rules of engagement that probably they find difficult to adhere. We don't give them the capacity to communicate effectively the needs that they feel at the grassroots level. Again, probably we could strengthen the research and research mechanism so that those severely affected by policies get really heard. We talk of people at the Laylayan, but how do we encourage people at the Laylayan to come out and participate? We should put in the mechanisms for them to be able to do so. Looking further, probably we could bring the policymakers from the urban areas to the rural areas. Conduct more meetings, more conferences, more consultations at probably at the barangay level. We have done that. If we really wanted to do that, we have done that. We have brought the sessions to Batangas during the Taal volcano eruption. We have gone to certain extent to reach out to those affected by disasters. But we can probably use that mechanism when we formulate policies, when we think of ways by which we can reach out further away from the urban centers. It takes a lot of encouragement for them to come out, but if we don't do it, they won't really go to us. Basically, may mga challenges economically, probably, and a lot of probably in the challenges sa communication. So until such time that we come up with a policy to address these concerns, I don't think we can formulate a policy that will really be inclusive. Transparency can be promoted by the digital infrastructure we have right now. Yung future proofing would probably be done through, again, ang thesis ko dyan is done by proper monitoring and evaluation of the policies that we have implemented.
Thank you. Or it can be something as basic as what one reactor said this morning, like education, basic education. Because the people, the grassroots, they don't, like you said, they don't have the confidence to come forward. So I think basic education is one area where policy should be strengthened. Edie Marin?
Yeah, hello. I think we need to hardwire learning into our laws, policies that we craft, but we cannot do that without monitoring and evaluation. That's the reason why I am personally in our office, and I have counterparts at the CBILLS who are advocating for the passage of national evaluation policy in government. That would make the generation of evidence as a normal course of business in government, not just an exception or personality based. You know, when personalities retire, when they retire from positions or in power, transparency, accountability disappear. So, and in fact, we do that even now. We try to support people, political people, who we think would be able to push for transparency and accountability in government. But we are not looking at how systems should be established to be able, so that when these personalities disappear, you know, the generation of evidence would remain. They would be embedded in all the policy, in all the phases of policy development cycle. So we learn from our policy implement or program implementation, and then we hardwire them into legislative review, policy adjustment, or program adjustments. We do not stop from from being contented with how documents are published or how they share with us some information. They need to be reflected in how policies evolve or change, because they do not. First is we need to answer the question: for whom does the policy work? Who is left behind? Still left behind. We're not doing that in every policy or program that we craft. I don't hear that in both houses of Congress. So I think we need to have that shift, that important shift in mindset, that always we look at how people benefit from all of this. Otherwise, we will still see the same problems over and over again 10 years or 20 years from now.
Thank you. SVP Mendoza, what should we do?
On my part, I think we really need an agile legislative process. So one of our suggestions is really maybe related to the concerns or ideas of other panel members is that maybe the Congress can consider that every law that will be passed will now have a sunset provision. And that sunset provision will require, among others, an honest to goodness impact evaluation of the legislation. And we need to be firm to the point that when a policy or legislation after the study did not work, we have to accept the fact that this has to be changed or this has to be discontinued. So that's one. The other thing is also, maybe we can also look back, try to inventory all the existing legislations, because right now, as far as I know, we have many legislations still in effect, although they are already obsolete. And I think that's a major stumbling block, if not a constraint, not only in the business sector, but also within the government itself. So I think we have many, many legislations. And earlier, I think our president said that we need to institutionalize the RIA, or the Regulatory Impact Assessment. As you said, I think there are many proposals or legislations being put forward in different committees. But I think the rigor that includes conducting an honest to goodness regulatory impact assessment should be mandated. No? I think there's the mandate in the ARTA law that whenever agencies propose new regulations, it has to be accompanied by an honest to goodness RIA. But I think this is not, as mentioned by our president, observed by many, strictly observed by agencies. But I would also like to add that if we are really thinking about inclusive policy making, apart from the RIA, I think we need to also do vulnerability assessment. I think the regulatory impact assessment looks at the compliance burden, the administrative burden, and the impact to the different sectors. But I think an improvement or another dimension is really an honest to goodness vulnerability assessment. Who in the margins will be severely affected and what to do? Because at the end of the day, I think once it is proven that the benefits outweigh the cost, the policy can be adopted. But I think there will be sectors that will be severely hurt. And so I think there has to be, I would say, an affirmative action on one hand for those severely affected by certain legislations, especially the vulnerable sector.
A review of our legislation actually sounds nice. Maybe Edie Merwin's office can spearhead that in the Senate Economic Planning Office. It's not only to check for obsolescence, but also repetition, to avoid repetitive policies. Okay, we've sort of covered the three themes. I think we have time for a couple of questions from the audience. So this will count as the open forum already. So any questions from the floor or even participants online, if we have them? As usual, if there are any interested participants, you please state your name and your institution before asking the question. We have the lady over there.
Good afternoon again. When it comes to people's participation, I think that the PCUP can help you. And let us remember that there are different kinds of organization on the grounds. There are formal organizations and informal. So the formal organizations are those are those registered with the DSUD and the PCUP. And the non-formal are those people who organize among themselves, but they are not registered. So I think you should also consider those persons, because I'm one of the community leaders as HOA president. I think you should also consider us in participatory governance. Thank you very much.
Do we have any response from our panelists to that comment?
Yes, I just forgot to mention that early on in crafting policy proposals or program proposals, as mentioned by VP sorry. Those are the margins. The marginalized groups should be consulted. No, not only the marginalized groups, everyone who is or can be affected, or we think can be affected by the proposed policy or program, should be consulted first in defining the problem. What is really the problem? Who are affected? How big is it? How different how does that differ in terms of gender, age, region, or sectors? And that involves a lot of people. The communities, community organizations that you have mentioned should be included as well. Our marginalized sectors, the fisher folks, the youth who are not in school or not at work should be included as well. Many marginalized groups should be included in all the policy that the legislature would propose. And as I've mentioned earlier, it is important that they are included, that they should be in the same room. Otherwise, when they are not in the same room, when the problem was defined, they wouldn't feel that the law belongs to them. Thank you.
As for me, I think there's that mechanism that we have used every now and then, which is the party list system. The party list system is supposed to give a way by which the marginalized sector can be represented in Congress. The question remains that, have we used that party list system to that advantage? There have been questions proposed whether or not there's still a need for the party list system. I'm not questioning the party list system per se, but for me the final decision should be left in our hands. Remember, every election we get to choose our representative, and we get to choose one party list representative, right? Have we used that mechanism? That's the question I'd like to throw back. Thank you.
We have a raised hand over there, in the middle.
Sir, good afternoon. Kung sino lang po yung pwede pong mag-answer. Kasi you have mentioned that marginalized people should be heard in crafting laws. Now po, I will just give an example. Meron pong nangyayari sa ating field na may mga problema po sa mga drivers, transportation. If our government have heard those clamor of our drivers, bakit po patuloy pa rin po pinupush yung mga unreasonable laws for our affected marginalized people? Thank you.
For me, from my own perspective, it only means hindi talaga pinakinggan yung hinaing ng mga tao. Because if they did, dapat na-appreciate ng mga concerned groups yung proposed legislation. So bakit hindi nila na-appreciate? Because they were not there when the problem was defined. The problem was defined from the top, binababa lang. Ito yung ating kailangan because ito yung problem. What we see, still people are complaining. They are conducting pickets because hindi nila na-appreciate yung problem itself. So that's the reason why I think kailangan talagang since hindi nangyayari yung ganun, we need our laws or we need new laws to support itong ganitong klaseng the way of doing things na dapat talagang nakikinig, napapakinggan at yung boses nila nagre-reflect doon sa problem at saka sa proposed solution. The proposed solution is the legislation. Kung hindi yun na-appreciate ng mga taong concerned people, ibig sabihin hindi yun ang problemang tinitingnan nila na dapat ma-solve.
SVP Mendoza,
Yeah, I think kasi magkaiba yung expectation minsan when you are being consulted versus when you are treated, when you are part of what is labeled as a participatory process. Sometimes you are consulted, but after giving yung view or opinion, it will not matter to the whoever made the consultation because they will still finalize based on their original version. But I think an area for improvement there is that sana merong may handle sa tools at evidence or data yung sector na kinokonsulta natin. Kasi hindi pareho yung competence eh. No? So sometimes we think that we know better na yung design ng policy is sound because based on the theory or whatever the systematic process, okay naman siya. But hindi siguro makarelate yung the other side, hindi din ma-appreciate kung ano yung intention. So I think yung idea kanina about batibot kind of I would say communicating, no, the communicating from the identification or validation of the issue, and then yung solution, presenting what is being what would be legislated. Kung ganong level siguro ng discussion, baka magkaroon ng mas informed consultation and appreciation on the part of the sectors being consulted or being part of the consultative or the participative process.
Without necessarily dumbing down the idea,
Yes.
but raising the level of the discourse by reaching down to them.
You start from the ground, but yun na nga, that's what I'm saying na kailangang i-equip siguro ng ganong klaseng skill. Even
Yes.
yung legislators natin or siguro yung staff din nila para ma-elicit nila yung ganong klaseng information.
I also saw the lady who gave the question nodding her head, and so I think that answer resonated well with her. Maybe one last. Oh, I'm told to wrap up. But I think we've had a very fruitful discussion with our panelists. I think, well, they told me to wrap up. So let me try to synthesize whatever we have discussed right now and today. All valid inputs from our panelists and also from the presentations today. Again, the buzzword today is transparency. And as some of our panelists or our panelists mentioned, transparency leads to accountability. But there are things to consider, right? Transparency has to have access to information. So there has to be policy on the accessibility of that information. So other hurdles like costs, and also the quality of that information. But then again, information that is available is empty if the people who receive that information cannot use it. So here lies the question of how we can make it a very participative environment. And I think a lot of the discussions today also consider that a question of policy, to make it inclusive and to make it participatory. So the citizens must be able to ask, and they must be able to influence, to participate in the discussion, in the legislation, as our audience mentioned. I'd like to end by mentioning something that I read, I think, years ago in The Economist. And I don't know if it's possible in our country, and that's why that's one of the follow-up questions I was supposed to ask Edie Merwin. Spain has this platform called, I think, Direct Madrid or Decide Madrid. Yeah, Decide Madrid. Do you know that, sir? It's a platform. It's a platform where the citizens directly propose things to, I think, the parliament or the government, and based on the votes, which is popular, based on the votes, there's a certain percentage threshold, when if you reach that threshold, then the parliament members vote on it. So it's direct participation, and even the monitoring and evaluation afterwards, it's direct participation. So they do have that platform, but they have this what our reactors call the information intermediary, because they have to consider the validity, the technical feasibility, legal feasibility of those proposals. So I think that's a good example. Yes, Edie Merwin, can you?
There's also the same model in Australia. I learned this in CBILLS. I took the CBILLS in 2020 online. And they have this platform wherein one citizen could participate in the session. One session, I think, I don't know if it's monthly or weekly, or once a week or once a month, that the citizen can actually voice out in front of the legislators as to the issue that he or she thinks or they think are important to them or to the people that need to be addressed by the legislature. And I think that model can be, I was supposed to talk about it earlier, that we can actually adopt that kind of model.
So
In terms
it's
of
the concept of co-creation, right?
Yes.
I think one of our reactors also mentioned that term earlier in the day. You mentioned CBILLS. I think everyone will agree that the CBILLS is also another avenue where we are directly participating in introducing policy. Is it not? Will everyone agree with me on that? So yes, let's give ourselves a pat on the back for that. Round of applause. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their queries. Also, our panel members for the discussion. Very, very meaningful. Very, very interesting answers. And thank you, everyone. I'd like to turn over the floor now to Ms. Sheena.
Thank you very much, Attorney Peredo, for that thoughtful and practical synthesis. Your reflections brought the discussion full circle and grounded our conversation in both urgency and possibility. We truly appreciate your excellent guidance towards this culminating session. May I now request our panelists to come forward together with our moderator as we present the certificates of appreciation. May I also request on stage the component manager behind the Thursday Talks and their successful conference, Ms. Janina Rafer, together with her team, Benzi Castro and Yuki Brito, to award the certificate of appreciation. Asa yung tatlo? Asa na yung dalawa? So we would like to award this certificate of appreciation to our dear panelists, House of Representatives Deputy Secretary General Dante Roberto Maling, Senate Economic Planning Office Executive Director Merwin Salazar, and our very own Development Academy of the Philippines Senior Vice President for Programs, Magdalena Mendoza. Awarding this certificate we are also awarding this certificate to our moderators, Senate Legislative Bills and Index, who has graciously accepted this this role kahapon lang. So, thank you so much, Attorney Eldrick Paul Peredo from the Senate for serving as moderator for this ceremony. Yay. Ayan. May mga follow-up na. Congrats, sir. Sobra. And now to our offer a final message for this year's CBILLS conference. We are honored to hear from a leader who plays a crucial role in shaping the direction of the Philippine Congress. May I call to the podium Deputy Secretary General Dante Roberto Maling to deliver the closing remarks on behalf of Secretary General Attorney Cheloy E. Licaria Garafil, House of Representatives.
Please bear with me. Kukuha lang ako ng kode ko. Sandali. Let me read the message of our beloved Secretary General who is indisposed right now. She's attending to a lot of concerns in the House of Representatives. To the esteemed officials and hardworking team of the Development Academy of the Philippines, led by Senior Vice President Magdalena Mendoza, Vice President Cheryl Reyes, and Vice President Monica Saliendres, the distinguished speakers and resource persons, our valued partners from the private sector, the academe and civil society, my partner from the Senate of the Philippines, Deputy Senate Executive Director, Senate of the Senate Economic Planning Office, the Honorable Merwin Salazar. Sorry for that. And most importantly, to our brilliant CBILLS scholars from the Senate and the House of Representatives. Good afternoon to all. It is an honor to officially close the 2025 Capacity Building on Innovative Leadership for Legislative Staff Conference. On behalf of the House of Representatives, under the leadership of our Speaker, Faustino Bogie D. III, I extend my sincerest gratitude to the Development Academy of the Philippines for once again organizing this vital event. My deep appreciation also goes to our speakers for sharing their expertise, to our partners for their unwavering support, and to all participants, especially our legislative staff, for their active engagement and valuable contributions. The success of this conference is the result of your collective commitment. Today, we were reminded of our core objectives to practice inclusive, participatory, and responsive governance, aligned with the long-term vision of Ambition Natin 2040. These principles are essential to making na maginhawa, matatag, at panatag na buhay a reality for all Filipinos. Policies must address national challenges and, above all, serve the people. Earlier, our legislative staff showcased rigorous policy analysis and research proposals while exploring new ways to strengthen collaboration between government and stakeholders. The plenaries and sessions reflected the daily challenges and opportunities we face in Congress. In our work, every piece of data and every draft bill holds the power to change lives. This brings to me the heart of our gathering, championing evidence-based and forward-looking policymaking. In an era of rapid change and complex problems, decisions cannot rest on anecdotes or expediency. As a technical institutional memory of the legislature, you, our dedicated staff, are the bedrock of lawmaking. We rely on you to embrace data, anticipate future challenges, and ask the hard questions. The commitment to evidence-based policy is the only path to governance that is truly inclusive, participatory, and responsive. The real measure of this conference success will be how we turn shared insights into concrete action. I challenge everyone to make this conference a catalyst. First, let us sustain the partnerships we strengthened today. These connections are vital bridges between government, academe, the private sector, and civil society. Let us keep them alive. Second, apply your knowledge with renewed vigor. When you return to your offices, review bills with the sharper, data-driven lens. Propose innovative solutions. Write policy briefs that look 10 or 20 years ahead. Your capability is the capability of the Philippine Senate, the House of Representatives, and your innovation is the innovation for the country. Under the banner of Bagong Pilipinas, our mission is clear. Build a legislative framework that addresses national challenges and serves the Filipino people. Congratulations to everyone on a successful conference. Let us move forward with a renewed sense of purpose and a stronger commitment to our shared goals. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Thank you.
Cheloy Garfield, and for reminding us of the bigger purpose behind our collective efforts. Your words shall serve as an important anchor as we continue our work not just in DAP, but as civil servants and as Filipinos in shaping a more responsive and future-ready Philippine government. Today has been a testament to what becomes possible when ideas, experience, and purpose come together. We've listened to voices from across government, the private sector, civil society, and the academe. But most importantly, we heard from our scholars, whose insights and proposals remind us why capacity building is not just an investment, but a responsibility. As we look ahead, may the conversations we started here not end within these walls. Let them inform our analysis, shape our strategies, and strengthen our resolve to pursue legislation that is inclusive, participatory, and truly responsive to the Filipino. On behalf of the Development Academy of the Philippines and the CBILLS program, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished guests, resource persons, CBILLS scholars, and colleagues from civil society, organizations, and the private sector for joining us in the second CBILLS conference. Once again, I'm Sheena Mateo. Maraming salamat po and magandang hapon sa ating lahat. To commemorate today's event, the DAP CBILLS teams would like to share a recap video, a same-day edit. Yun po.